It was fun. I love this sport. I gave it my all. It's fucking crazy. I had a blast, and thank you to all the fans and everyone.
All right, folks, it's over. Anthony Joshua knocks out Jake Paul in the 6th round of their fight on Netflix.
Style that would align with a ring that size, a negative style, as we mentioned. It really comes down to the fan interest. Jake Paul is on a 2-fight stretch coming into this one, which really put his reputation on the line.
Boxing pros react to Jake Paul's possible retirement following his shocking knockout loss to Anthony Joshua. Jake has hinted that once he achieves all his goals in boxing, he plans to quit and pursue a career in the NFL, signaling a major shift in his athletic journey.
NFL after this, like legitimately, just to play like safety and just deck people. No, I swear to God, I'm about to bring hella ratings to whatever team I'm on.
Where would you want to go if you can go to any team?
Shit, the Browns.
So
I can run a 4.34.
He's the fastest man on the planet.
I got hands. I have the size, the power. I can knock people out with one punch. So why can't I play free safety?
Do you think you coming into the NFL would be the equivalent of like when an NFL player says, I'm going to try to box now?
No, because I played football my whole life. At the end of the day, it's coverage, knowing your plays, and then just being fast.
The boxing world reacts strongly to the fight, as ex-user IB states after the shocking knockout, giving an explosive take on Jake Paul's future in boxing by posting, Jake Paul knocked out. His career is over. This bum is done. Duke McKenzie speaks on the recent fight, pointing out how undersized Jake Paul was against Anthony Joshua. He says that even when Jake tried to land punches, he couldn't reach AJ properly, highlighting the mismatch. McKenzie strongly says that Jake should stop this nonsense now, as continuing in such fights could be dangerous and damaging to his boxing reputation.
Tried to throw a shot, he would lunge in, jump in, and because he was so short, he'd miss. And then he ended up stumbling over his feet and falling over. Sometimes in that fight, it reminded me of, have you seen that Kung Fu film called The Drunken Master? Except for he wasn't a master. As a Kung Fu guy walks around and normally kicks people's ass, but he looks drunk all the time. That's what that fight reminded me of. It was such a poor showing from Jake Paul. You know, I mean, it's a well-documented fact. There was a lot of money on the line. And I'm sure you, Max, as I would, and anybody else in the street would fight Anthony Joshua for 75 million. You just would. And the same thing would happen. And even after the fight, now the fight's over, you're 75 million.
Another ex-user, Chelsea, responds passionately to Jake Paul's shocking loss, sharing their honest opinion and relief by posting, I hardly come here anymore, but I'm so glad Jake Paul lost. Maybe now he'll shut up. Former UFC champion Michael Bisping responds to Jake Paul's devastating loss at the hands of Anthony Joshua, calling it a masterclass. He explains how badly Jake got hurt, noting that AJ's powerful uppercuts and combinations left Paul no room to maneuver. Despite Jake's efforts to avoid the punches by running, he couldn't escape the punishment. Bisping emphasizes that the damage to Jake's face and general condition was severe, making it clear that he needs to rest and recover fully before considering any future fights. The fight revealed Jake's limitations against top-tier opponents.
In my humble opinion, because I'm a big Anthony Joshua fan. Of course, I've been a supporter for the longest time. A rather lackluster, unmotivated Anthony Joshua that didn't look like he was being particularly nasty, right? Yeah, a lot of the time he was out of range, and okay, it is hard to land a shot on someone that's backing up and moving away the whole time. And there was a lot of times where he had him in the corner and he could have thrown a shot. And sometimes he was telegraphing his shots. And anytime he did go in to throw a punch, as I said before, Jake Paul would shoot in and turn it into a wrestling match. And even when he wasn't shooting in, he was clinching a lot. This is boxing. It's not MMA, as we know. The referee should have done a much better job of getting in there and separating them much faster. As I say, it was the 6th round. I think it was the 4th round he got dropped twice. In the 5th round, he got through it. In the 6th round, caught him with the jab, then a glancing right hook. He goes down, and that was that. That was all she wrote, right? I did a live. There was about 9,000 people watching at one point. Nobody was particularly enjoying the matchup. Listen, okay? I respect both men. I respect anyone really that steps into the ring, okay? And certainly going up against Anthony Joshua, that was a tall task, okay? You know, metaphorically and figuratively, right? It was a tall task. It was a big job. It was a tough opponent. It was a mismatch, and it was, right? Jake Paul never worried Anthony Joshua once. He never rung his bell. He never caused any damage. He never had him worried. He never did anything. It wasn't a fight. It was a display of how long can Jake Paul last? Can he run away long enough?
Ex-user Cabarol's Finest responds to Jake Paul's shocking injury, reporting the severity of the situation by posting, Jake Paul has gone to the hospital with a suspected broken jaw. Bro was forced into early retirement. Sean Jones shares his response to the intense fight between Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua, highlighting that at least the bout wasn't rigged or scripted. He notes that despite Jake getting his jaw broken, AJ didn't even use his full power, suggesting that the knockout could have been even more deadly. Jones emphasizes the severity of the injury while giving credit to the authenticity of the battle. He thinks that Jake faced a genuine challenge and that the fight showed the harsh realities of stepping up against a world-class boxer like Joshua, making his injury all the more serious.
All those people who were fully convinced that this fight was 100% rigged. Like, people said that this is a clown show, and they said, this is rigged, this is scripted. Okay, so now Joshua's won. What are you going to say to that? So was it scripted that Joshua was going to win? You see this whole narrative about, oh, the fight's rigged, the fight's scripted. That's illegal to do, and Joshua is not going to tarnish his legacy by doing something like that. Would Jake Paul do something like that? Maybe so, yeah, but not someone like Joshua. Come on. Now, to be fair, 80% of that fight was looking a little bit dodgy. It was looking like Joshua wasn't throwing as much as he usually would. Jake Paul was landing on Joshua. He landed a really strong jab that knocked Joshua's head back. He landed a couple of decent overhand rights. In fact, Jake was kind of the first one who landed the biggest shots of the fight. But this is the thing, anyone who fights, even on like a low-level basis, or who just does some sparring, will understand that when you fight someone who has got nowhere near the skill level as you, sometimes it can be a little bit harder because they're awkward. They're doing stuff that you don't really expect. You know, sometimes when you fight beginners, it's a bloody nightmare. Just like, you know, awkward movements. You're like, what are they throwing? You don't expect certain shots to come that do come. And then you fight someone who's a little bit more traditionally sound with the fundamentals, and it's almost a little bit easier. And I think that's what we've seen here in this fight. AJ has had an easier time with some fighters who've got like 40 professional fights with 20 KOs on the record than he did with Jake Paul. Why is that? Oh, because it's scripted. It's scripted. No, it's not scripted. It's just because Jake Paul is awkward and he's a beginner in relation to Joshua. So Joshua just took some time to figure them out. You could see Joshua was getting a little bit frustrated in that 4th and 5th round, but then he...
User Mir71 fires a sharp warning at Jake Paul after his loss, urging him to step away from the sport by posting, "Do everyone a favor and don't return." Real boxer fans have had enough. Analyst Liam Goff warns that Jake Paul is in real trouble following his brutal loss to Anthony Joshua. According to Goff, the avenues for Jake's boxing career are effectively closed for now, as he faces serious injuries that require significant recovery time. The mix of a broken jaw and other physical setbacks means Jake must step back and focus entirely on healing. G emphasizes that until Jake fully recovers, any plans to continue fighting are on hold. The analyst stresses that this time is important for Jake's long-term health and future in professional sports, making the situation particularly concerning.
When he had that face-off with Tank Davis, he was looking at a guy who was, 5-6 inches shorter than him and probably 60-70 pounds lighter, right? So he was probably looking at that thinking, yeah, you're a legit boxer, yeah, you hit very hard, but look how much bigger I am to you. Contrast that to him looking up at Anthony Joshua and realizing, oh my God, look at the size of you in comparison to me. That's a bit different. And I think with Jake Paul, it really dawned on him what's going on. But Jake Paul has to keep face. He has to stay essentially in that persona that, you know, I am the man, I'm going to win this, trying to sell a dream to a casual, a bit like what Eddie Hearn does, trying to sell the casual audience that this is going to be a real fight, quote unquote. It was a real fight. It's not scripted, but you know what I mean, that he's really in this fight. That's what he was trying to do. And he did that well up until fight night. Boy, did he fail miserably on fight night. Again, I give him credit. He doesn't need to box. He can choose an easier profession, as I say. But to go in and to run around the ring like that, that was something else entirely. I mean, he was doing his best Roadrunner impression in there. He was running around that ring from the minute that bell went. That was all he was trying to do. And listen, AJ's performance, I can critique it from a defensive point of view, that he got hit with some silly shots that he probably shouldn't have been hit with. He was trying to cut the ring off in a ring as big as that. It's not easy. All right. And furthermore, if you're in there with an opponent who purely purely just wants to survive. He's no interest in winning the fight. He just wants to go the rounds. People, you could be one of the most hyper, you could be a prime Mike Tyson, Bone Crusher Smith, prime example. People never talk about that fight with Mike Tyson because they say, oh.
After suffering an injury in his recent fight, Jake Paul updates fans on X about his recovery and current state, showing gratitude toward his medical team while acknowledging the challenges ahead. He writes, "Just got out of surgery. Everything went smoothly. Thanks for all the love. Lots of pain and stiffness. Got to eat water for 7 days." So to the amazing team at Miami University Hospital, everyone was so polite and caring. Wade commented on Jake Paul's recent fight, emphasizing that while Jake may have felt he had done it all, part of the reason for his approach was that he doesn't have to defend multiple belts and could focus on possible money fights in the upcoming year. Wade speculates matches with top stars like Canelo or even a return to a slow-paced year for Jake. While noting a huge future fight against Tyson Fury awaits if Jake fully commits, he warns that Jake was nowhere near AJ's level in skill, size, power, speed, or endurance, yet respects him for getting into the ring.